friends, welcome to another What is a Spiritism online study here at Hello dear friends, welcome to another What is a Spiritism online study here at Light in the Shire Spiritist group. My name is Fran and we will be taking you through one more beautiful part of the last chapter of the book. And we are exploring the teachings of the spirits through the work of Allan Kardec. And we moved on to the last chapter, like I said. So it's chapter 3, the solution to a few problems by the means of the spirit, of the Spiritist philosophy. So in this part of the study that we're doing, we are reviewing some other key concepts that helps us understand, amongst everything, I guess, our existence, our necessities as spirits. And we're going to be reviewing these two very rich pages. Even though they're just 2 pages, there's a lot to go through. But we're going to be talking a little bit more about the soul, the concept of the soul according to the Spiritist philosophy. So we're up to pages 196 to 198. So in our previous class, Flavia was talking to us about the plurality of the worlds. And we've reviewed basically, that Earth is not the only planet where there's inhabitants and life. That's one of the myths that the spirits have helped Allan Kardec debunked. And it does make sense. I mean, look at the whole of the universe, all this gazillion of galaxies that we don't even know. That wasn't all created just to surround planet Earth. It would be a little bit too selfish, too egotistic for us to think that literally the whole universe revolves around the existence of the human soul in this planet only. So we've learned through Flavia's teachings, reviewing what Allan Kardec has taught us, that there is life in every planet. Each planet might be on a different level of evolution, but we are all given opportunities to progress because of the law of progress, because of the creation's love for us. So we are going through this process of transition on Earth. So we were moving from a planet of trials and expiations to a world of regeneration. So if we can all evolve as spirits morally, through our intelligence development, we can hopefully move on to the regeneration phase of this planet that we live in. So just a very short synapse of the previous class. And we're moving on to the soul. So in these 2 pages, Allan Kardec is basically reviewing everything we need to review about what is the soul. So initially, the first question that was asked to the spirits, and he actually used a little bit of the question and answers format from the Spirits book to answer some of these questions. So whenever there's a reference there, I can flag which question it was. But the first question is, where is the seat of the soul? So where within our bodies is the soul connected to? So that was the question that some people asked back then. So he clarifies, the soul is not, it is generally believed, located in any specific part of the body. So he identified and introduced back then this concept of the perispirit. So he said, along with the perispirit, it forms a fluidic, penetrable whole, assimilating the entire body, with which it comprises a complex being, and from which death is no more than a sort of split. So let's go through each of these concepts slowly but surely so we can understand it better. So we have a physical body, right? So this is the body formed through the matter that we can feel and touch, what's tangible. This physical body needs a interface, we'll put it that way, between the spiritual world and the physical world. So there's kind of two layers to that we have understood from the Spiritist teachings. So I'll go into the next slide and it will help us visualize this a little bit. So we have the etheric body, which is the more dense part of the perispirit of our, say, astral body. So when we pass away, when we go back to the spiritual realm, this etheric body is actually the part of the perispirit that stays here, connected within the body. And there has been talk about, I think, that 21 grams. People said, oh, you know, like when you pass away, you reduce your weight in 21 grams. So there's, you know, some speculation that maybe that's that part of the etheric body that just disappears because it's just an etheric energy that was connected with our body that would make the interface between the body and the spirit. But it stays here whenever we pass away. And the perispirit is the part that stays with us. So when we say that we've seen an apparition or a spirit, what we are seeing is actually their perispirit, because the perispirit can be made visible to our eyes here in the physical existence if we are mediums. But if we're not mediums, that's the body, that's the part of our souls that can use the fluidic emanations that comes from different mediums, the energy that's called ectoplasm, which is a more dense part of the energy that we can produce as mediums that donate ectoplasm, and then they can actually make the perispirits of spirits visible. So the perispirit is this connection between the two. And interestingly enough, I actually purposely wanted to bring this kind of mental body representation here, because everything that we're thinking becomes this big mental body reflection around us. So see how the mental body is even bigger than the perispirit, and you know, that's what people say, that they can see like this aura. It's this oval big projection of our mental state that is reflected onto the spiritual realm, and it's visible for all the spirits to see. And our spirit is kind of like the essence of who we are. Some people consider it our higher selves, our primary intelligent principle, you know, our consciousness. There's a lot of different terminology you can use, but our spirit is this intangible part of who we are, and it uses all these different representations so we can live the corporeal life. So Kardec does make a differentiation when he talks about the different concepts in the Spirit's book, that the soul is the incarnate spirit, and the spirit, when he just says the spirit, he's talking about this essence that stays in you know, both realms, but uses the perispirit to, I guess, make the connection with the sensations, with the emotions of the spiritual world. And then, of course, we have the physical body tailored to the planet that we live in. So like Flavia was mentioning in the previous class, if we live on Earth, of course, our physical body is made of materials, components of this atmosphere, this planet. And of course, if we reincarnate in different realms, in different planets, our perispirit might need to adapt, and we might need to use these physical elements of that spirit, that planet, to be able to have our spirit use the physical interpretations of what we're seeing, feeling, you know, what we're trying to do, like actions. I hope that makes sense. So he continues to clarify, during life, the soul acts more especially upon the organs of thought and sentiment. It is simultaneously internal and external. That is, it radiates outward. So like I was saying before, what we think is represented through that mental body that we project onto the spiritual realm. And what we're, like, our emotions are reflected through that as well. So if we are angry, if you're happy, if you're sad. That's what some people say, that they can see the color of your aura. It's actually a representation of all this, the emotional state, the mind. We do have reports that we vibrate in different levels of energy, and each level of energy might have a different kind of color representation. So based on that, you know, and based on what the spirits say that they can see on our perispirit, they can see, for example, if you're constantly angry, we might overwork, for example, our heart, our stomach, our guts, releasing like hormones that might create more imbalance, you know, releasing cortisol that can rack our nervous system. All these things, the habits that we might have around our emotions, our physical feelings, can impact that spiritual body, the perispirit, the etheric body, and so forth. So this is not a class just about this, but just wanted to make sure that we could communicate that. So that's, I think, highlights how important it is to control our thoughts, to be vigilant about our thoughts. And when we feel something coming through, how can we use the resources that we learn, you know, about like prayer, for example, or listening to nice music, or connecting with nature again. It's a way for us to regulate the emotions so we can achieve a better mental state, therefore a better spiritual reflection state. And then we make good connections again. Yeah, so thoughts, actions, and feelings are all interconnected. And the soul, he explains as well, it can leave the body, travel far, and manifests its presence somewhere else, as observation and somnambulistic phenomena have shown. So there's just an example here. So when we are still incarnate, that spiritual body that we're talking about, so our perispirit, it's still connected to our physical body. You can see that there's a little, in this picture here, there's a little thread connecting us. So the bond is still there between our physical bodies and our perispirit. Only when we discarnate that this bond breaks. But if we are, for example, during our dream state, if we are traveling somewhere, of course, each spirit will travel or will be allowed to go according to their needs and their spiritual level of evolution, and, you know, the harmony or disharmony we're vibrating on. But we are allowed to, for example, leave that physical realm where we're sleeping, as an example, and go somewhere to learn or go meet with someone that we need to meet. That's why it's so important as well before bedtime to connect with our mentors, to connect with good spirits, because we can have that happen. And yeah, so he mentions here the observation on somnambulistic phenomena, because there's a lot of mediums that have this somnambulic capacity as well to, you know, travel somewhere else whilst their bodies are connected with a meeting here, for example. So that's also part of a mechanism of mediumship, but it's something that the soul can do. Do you have any comments, Fla?
No.
No? Good. Okie dokie. So we move on to the question 109. Is the soul created at the same time as the body or before? That's a very good question Kardec has asked. So Kardec clarifies, apart from the existence of the soul, this question is the most crucial because its solution leads to the most important consequences. It is the only key to a multitude of problems unsolvable until now for lack of being considered. So before we considered if the existence of the soul anteceded the body, or if the soul continued to exist once the body perishes, it is impossible to explain a number of things that we see in our lives and in society. And that's one of the things that the spirits wanted to make sure we understood. So he continues to develop the concept, saying, with the pre-existence of the soul, everything is explained logically and naturally. Without it, it's even impossible to justify certain dogmas of the church. So a couple of examples that I could think about. Why some people are poor and others are rich? why some people are extremely developed in some of their aptitudes and intelligence, and others aren't as developed in that sense. So we actually have a couple other questions coming through that are going to help us understand this, but some of the principles that we see in reincarnation, the existence and the permanence of the soul post-material life, explains why do we live in such a diverse context. So I'll continue with the other questions because then we can tie everything in. But some of the dogmas that we couldn't understand before Spiritism came to us, before these clarifications came to us back in the 1857, 60s, was, okay, so if we die, for example, as children, we become angels, but if we die halfway through our lives, we either go to heaven or hell. So some things just didn't make sense. Like, why would some have some privileges and others wouldn't? So this is a big question that Spiritism has tried to explain, like how we all naturally evolve. And I'll move on to the next question so I don't, jump the gun here. But so he continues, if the soul exists prior to the body, then before its union with the body, did it possess its individuality and self-awareness? So the Spirit's answer, without individuality and self-awareness, the results would be the same, and as if it had not existed in the first place. So of course, our individuality and our self-awareness are there before. What we understand in Spiritism is the process of reincarnation allows us to learn and focus on things that we need for the immediate kind of future for us, right? So we have the body that we need for this specific reincarnation produced as a reflection of the model that we have used to create it, which is our perispirit, which did pre-exist before the body is created, before our moms and dads give us the chromosomes that we need to be able to form that little physical element. This is all planned and done beforehand. So we actually do create with our own minds and capacities the new body that we need to reincarnate. And a lot of people might not know this or might feel like they're not capable of creating, but yes, we do. Our minds create everything, including the essence that will become that developed, intelligent, and wonderful machine, which is our physical body, to be able to give us the context that we need to live in. And, the bigger context of this would be, of course, the parents, the genetic materials that's passed on by our parents, the environment we're going to be planned to grow in. But because we're talking about the soul and the body, we're going to stop here, but I think it gives us an idea. Our individuality, our self-awareness, our expressions of self, all this is created within the context of planning our reincarnation before we actually have the physical body developed within our mom's wombs. And then he asks, prior to its union with the body, had the soul achieved any progress or had it been stationary? So of course we have achieved some progress. So he says that the soul's prior progress is both the consequence of observation of the phenomena and the Spirit's teaching. So what we learn through the Spiritist teachings is we acquire knowledge, emotional knowledge, intelligent knowledge, relational knowledge, how to relate to people. And when we reincarnate, these things are part of who we are. So by seeing the diversity of qualities and dispositions of humankind, we can see where some have developed more in an area than other, and vice versa. But we're all given opportunities to reincarnate and develop more of those potentials that we have as part of this reincarnatory process. So we're giving a new body each life that we have to take care of, we have to make the most of, but it is a new body developed for what we need to learn here and now in this lifetime, in this chance that we have. So he continues, did God create all souls morally and intellectually equal, or did God create some more perfect and intelligent than others? Again, This is one of the big things that Kardec has clarified for us. So he says that if God had created some souls more perfect than others, such favoritism would not be compatible with God's justice. Since we are all God's creatures, why would God exempt some from the labor while imposing it on others in order to achieve eternal happiness? The inequality of souls at their origin would be a negation of God's justice. So we were all created equal before the eyes of God. Our spiritual essence and that intelligence, the intelligent principle, was created the same way. As we develop through multiple lifetimes, maybe in different planets, in different realms, we acquire this knowledge. We, through our own efforts, conquer the knowledge, the qualities, the learning that we use to achieve our happiness. So God is fair, creation is fair. And that's one of the things that Spiritism clarifies as well. We see God as just, merciful, and we understand all these different laws, eternal laws that govern life, that makes justice possible. So we're never victims of anything else but our own past, our own needs. And we all use our free will and our capabilities to achieve our happiness, our evolution in our own pace, based on the opportunities that we're giving, yes, but he's just. So we all have the opportunity. It's what we make of it that will lead us to a more happy or not so happy outcome. Do you have any comment, Fla?
No, no comments.
Thanks. Okay, and then question 113, he asks, if all souls are created equal, how can the diversity of aptitudes and natural predisposition amongst Earth humankind be explained? So again, if we were all created equal, the only way to explain the diversity of levels of evolution and moral and intelligence acquisitions is through progress that we have advanced on through our lifetime as spirits. So say our eternal existence. So some souls are more advanced in intelligence and morality because they have lived longer and progressed more prior to their incarnation. So there's always an explanation. And I think in our previous class, we also discussed a little bit of this. So the law of progress really helps everyone have an opportunity to further progress. So with the interplanetary migrations, for example, we know that when Earth was a more primitive planet, we had the interplanetary migrations of some souls, some spirits that have lived in this planet called Capella, who were very morally unevolved, but very intelligent. And because they were no longer in line with the vibration levels of that planet, they were no longer wanting to progress morally. They were just, being very greedy, self-interests first, and just trying to overuse their intelligence to create chaos. They were given the opportunity, because God is so merciful, to bring progress, but here in the primitive world. And that we saw through many civilizations that were extremely more intelligent than most of the population. So we saw the Egyptians, the Mayans. There's a number of contexts that we can study in history that will help us understand this. Also, we have geniuses like Einstein, Isaac Newton.
That too. I think we always have to remember also the free will. People have choice, and I think that plays a big part into the involvement of the soul. You are put in a situation where you can choose. So you can either choose do good or do bad, and that plays a big part on our personal evolution, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. And that's what we're going to move on to next, because if we think about when the soul was created, so we have question, what is the state of the soul at its origin? So if the souls are created simple and ignorant, so if you don't have any knowledge of what's good, what's evil, or we have equal aptitude, we slowly develop as a new soul our free will, and the ideas. Until we have the evolutionary level to be able to have free will, we have good spirits that actually guide our learning for us. And then by the time we become human and we are given free will and we have all this potential, then it's up to us to choose how we use those resources, like Flavia had just mentioned, to our benefit, or sometimes we might choose things that might lead us to bad consequences, but it's all about what we choose to do. So we see that little by little, if the soul is, slowly progressing, it's through our own choices that we're going to develop into a more evolved being that uses our aptitudes for everything that we could. So it's like we start as a infant soul that makes a lot of mistakes. Think about an infant who needs the parent there, a toddler. You wouldn't leave them alone with fire, with hazardous things. It's the same thing. Our mentors, the spirits that are more evolved than us, they oversee our growth until we can actually make decisions on our own. And then from then on, we still have help. We still have a mentor. We still have other spirits, but they take a step back and they let us decide what we want to do. And then we, of course, experience the consequences of our choices because of laws like action and reaction and so forth. But we slowly develop our ideas, our likings, our dislikings, and our qualities, and our, sometimes our vices, our bad habits, but sometimes positive habits. And then life continues to offer us opportunities to grow. So question 115, he says, did the soul accomplish its previous progress in the soul state per se or in previous corporeal existence? So we have answered that already. So besides the Spiritist teachings regarding this point, the study of different degrees of humans' advancements on the earth demonstrates the soul's previous progress. It must have been accomplished over a series of corporeal existences that varied in number according to the degree they have reached. Such deduction is the result of having observed the phenomena occurring before our eyes every day. So, of course, it's the only way to explain how they're, incredible human beings with all that intelligence, all that potential for good. You see a lot of these people that we admire so much, people that become icons for us. They've lived potentially a lot more existences than we have, or they made very good use of the opportunities that were given to them. Hence why they reach that level of evolution in specific areas that we might admire. But of course, without this explanation of the soul existence before the body, we wouldn't be able to explain the differences that we see. And that's basically it from this class. Did you have any comments, Fla, or anything to add?
No.
Good. So yeah, of course, in 25 minutes, in half an hour, it's hard to explain such a deep concept, but in the Spirits book, there's a lot more information. Like I mentioned, a lot of this information was taken from the Spirits book. So if you're interested, the references here that Kardec makes is question 114, and there is then questions 166 to 222 in the Spirits book, but there's also a few Spiritist magazines, the Spirit Review, in 1862. There's a few issues that have talked about the soul, and this is where Kardec extracted information to put it on this book. So you can always go to that beautiful website called Kardecpedia that has got all this information in multiple languages, all available on online format. Amazing. You can read all the issues of the Spiritist magazines in there as well. So thank you for joining us for this. And our next session will be, we actually have next week on Tuesday, the 26th of July, the next Tuesday of the month of July, we have our therapeutic talk with Flavia. And the following week, on the 2nd of August, is when we're going to move on to the next item of this study. So we're going to be seeing the solution of a few problems by the means of the Spiritist philosophy, and we're going to talk about human beings during their life on Earth, pages 199 to 203, with myself again. So thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best, and hopefully we can see each other again soon. Thank you. Peace be with you.